If you're thinking about moving to Raleigh, North Carolina, then there's some things that you absolutely should know before you make the move. This is the video that I wish I had seen before my wife and I moved here from Texas. We had a lot of misconceptions and just things we straight up didn't know about Raleigh. Let's get into that right now. First thing that I wish I had known before we moved here was just how hot it gets. So I come from Texas, and I will say that the weather is better here than it was there. However, I was a little disappointed with how hot it does still get during the summer, especially thanks to that humidity. So that feels like is always going to be significantly higher than what the actual temperature is. I was told it would be humid coming here. It is a coastal state after all, but I didn't realize just how much hotter it makes things feel. I'm not used to that amount of humidity, and depending on where you're coming from, that might be a shocker for you as well. Now, what I do like is that during the mornings and nights, it actually cools off quite a bit. So it might be 70 in the mornings, but then it might reach 95 during the day. So if you're looking for that cooler weather during the summer, you can still get out in the morning. In Texas, that was not an option. And the good news is we do have all 4 seasons here in Raleigh, and that was the big appeal for us, might be for you too. And that part is true. You will get all 4 seasons. However, the second thing that is a little disappointing about Raleigh that we found out once we moved is that even though if you Google it, it'll say that Raleigh gets an average of about 4 to 6 inches of snow each year. That is just an average, and the truth is, in the past few years, Raleigh hasn't gotten any snow whatsoever, and it certainly hasn't snowed since we moved here. And for a lot of people, especially if you're coming from the north, you're like, thank God I don't have to deal with snow anymore, I don't have to plow it, all that stuff. But me personally, I just love a white Christmas. I love that time of the year. I actually originally grew up in Minnesota, so I've kind of been all over the US. There are some ski resorts in the mountains of North Carolina. However, they didn't even get snow this year. I don't think they ever even opened, or if they did, they were creating their own snow. So if you're used to going to somewhere like Colorado, like I am, you'd be extremely, extremely underwhelmed. But we're also pretty central on the East Coast, so you can head up into some of those more northern states if you really wanted to do some snow activities. Now, the second thing that I wish I'd known before moving to Raleigh was just how bad the allergies were. Not that I wouldn't have moved because of it, but I just wish I had been more prepared for that 1 to 2 months during the spring every year where literally everything, the cars, the roads, streets, houses, etc., they are caked with this greenish yellow pollen, and the allergies are just super bad. Honestly, all throughout the spring and the summer, my allergies have been very, very bad. I'm taking allergy medicine every day. And I assume it's one of those things where after being here X amount of time, you'll eventually adjust to the pollen levels, to those types of allergies. But it's been pretty rough for me adjusting to that, and I imagine it's that way for a lot of people. Now, the third thing that I wish I'd known before moving to Raleigh was that we actually have the most species of venomous snakes in the US, and just the most species of snakes in general. So we have a very large snake population. Again, we're heavily wooded, and I moved here pretty much for the nature, to be honest with you. So I shouldn't be too upset that things that live in nature are in Raleigh. But if you didn't think about that, because I didn't think about that, when you're going out on walks and trails and enjoying the nature of Raleigh, you're gonna run into snakes eventually. You're going to run into some other critters. So we have a lot of wildlife. I love that I see deer and I see bunnies and I see, all sorts of wildlife throughout Raleigh. I also see a lot of mosquitoes, or I should say when I lie down in bed at night, I see that I had 30 bites just because I was out for about half an hour. Number 4, you won't go to the beach and the mountains as much as you think you do. And this isn't going to be true for every single person, but I think the big appeal of North Carolina is that, like California, but for half the price, we have both mountains and ocean. And that was literally what drove me and my wife to Raleigh and North Carolina versus the other states. But the truth is, you really only have the weekend, unless you're a remote worker or you have flexible schedules, to go up to the mountains or to drive to the beach. And they're both 2 to 3 hours away, and that works both ways. So the beach is 4 hours of driving. The mountain could be 6 hours of driving. That's a lot to do on just a weekend. And to no surprise, if you're thinking about doing it on the weekend, then so is literally everybody else in the city. So you will have more traffic than you'd probably expect heading out. The campsites in the mountains are consistently booked up throughout the year to where you pretty much have to show up that Friday night while it's already dark, because that's how long it takes to get to the mountains, and hope that there is a first come, first served spot still available, which many times there's not. At the end of the day, if you really wanted to do that like every weekend, you could. Just be realistic with yourself about how often you're actually going to go and the amount of energy, time, and money it's gonna cost you to do that. Number 5, I did not realize when we moved here that most of Raleigh and Cary and Morrisville, these core parts of the triangle are all built out. And what build out means is that back in the 2000s, they ran out of land. The land is scarce. So that means the houses that are older continue to appreciate, become more expensive, they're still desirable, so people still pay top dollar to live in, say, Cary, for example, but they're getting an older and older house. So it's very common to find a house in Cary that's, $600,000 and it was built in the 90s. If you're looking for new construction and you want to be close to the airport or close to RTP, which is where a lot of our jobs are here in the Triangle, you actually are forced to go either into Durham or you're forced to go about 20, 30 minutes away from the jobs to find new construction. And every now and then there's a little micro development of new construction or a tear down that's pretty close to RTP. It's in North Raleigh, it's in Cary, but these are gonna be, one, extremely expensive. They could easily break $1 million. And I get calls like that every day. People who are relocating, they want to live in Cary and have a house that has a nice updated layout that's open concept and is built in 2020 or newer. And I say, that doesn't exist. I'm sorry. And I think those expectations just need to be set in your mind before you make the move here. And so if you're serious about moving to the Raleigh area, then it's really important to work with an experienced real estate agent who knows the area, knows how to balance your needs with what the market actually has. And so if that's you, I want you to just call the number down below or click the link in the description and set up a time to talk with me and my team. Now let's head into the rest of the video. Something I wish I knew before moving to the Triangle, I remember trying to do research on this, trying to figure out what were the best areas, what were the most affordable areas. If you want a full breakdown of the entire Wake County, which covers Raleigh, Cary, and all our suburbs, then make sure you click on the video up above. Watch that at the end of this one. But essentially how our market works is the most expensive real estate generally is going to be near RTP in the airport. So it's going to be Cary, Morrisville, into Apex, Northwest. These areas are extremely hot because of their proximity. They have the better schools typically. And then as you head more east, it gets less and less expensive, especially once you get up into Wake Forest, down into Knightdale, into Clayton. That's where we also find a lot of our affordable new construction. So what you really need to understand when moving to the area is that depending on your budget, that budget allows you to get close or far from RTP. If you really needed to be close to the jobs, to the schools, then you're gonna have to go for something like a townhome on a tight budget or go for a really older, smaller house. And if you really care more about the house than the proximity, then we can talk about going onto the east side and onto those outer suburbs, and then we can really make your money go a lot further. Number 7 on the list, our downtown is not like a normal city's downtown, and I didn't realize that before moving here. So our economic hub is RTP, that's the Research Triangle Park. It's where a lot of researchers are, educators, tech companies, health companies, pharmaceuticals, and that's actually sandwiched between Raleigh and Durham. So people still live in downtown. The real estate there is still expensive, but for different reasons. So there's a lot of historic homes there. There's some really nice neighborhoods that a lot of older families and retirees live in. Then there's also the North Carolina State University. So we get a lot of young professionals who are in there. Some take jobs in downtown and buy a condo or rent out an apartment. But we also have a second downtown north of the Inner Belt, which is 440, and that is called North Hills. That is the newer, sexier downtown. A lot of young people prefer to live there. It's a little more central. But the people who want to be really close to work, they actually will live up in Cary or Morrisville or Northwest Raleigh to be as close as they can get to RTP. Number 8, moving from Texas, I was used to football, NBA, and then there was a little bit of baseball going on. But here in the Triangle, it's all about college sports and hockey. So we have a pretty good hockey team, NHL, the Hurricanes. You can't go very far without seeing a sticker or a flag or something like that. Raleigh is big into the Canes. They always sell out the PNC Arena for the events. It's pretty fun to go to. And then we have like Duke basketball, UNC, we have NC State basketball, and they're all kind of rivals. And so we have a big college sports scene here for basketball and for hockey here in the Triangle. And you better get on board with that if you're gonna live here, because everybody talks about it. Before we move on to the rest of the video, if you're finding value, just do me a favor, quickly hit the like button. Just lets me know I'm doing a good job and helps others find the video too. Number 9, I did not know this before moving here. Because we're such a wooded city, and we have very, very tall, dense trees everywhere we go, which I love, we also have a lot of problems related to trees. So just to name a few, 1, every now and then we get hurricane impacts and a lot of rain and bad weather because we're coastal, and so trees can fall, and that can be a big issue if it falls into your house, on your roof. 2, because of that, they're very expensive to not only trim back, but to completely remove, which sometimes is necessary. They can grow roots under the house and cause foundation issues, or they can leave pine needles on your roof, which clogs your gutters or causes your roof to stay damp, which can cause mold. On the plus side, number 10, we are a very active city, and I didn't realize just how active Raleigh was before moving here. I knew that coming from Texas, where everything is kind of, dull, there's not a lot of nature, it's very hot, and I was pleasantly surprised by just how active Raleigh is. You can't go anywhere without running into greenways and trails and parks and lakes. People are always outside at all hours of the day, and I really appreciate that. You'll find that there's bike paths everywhere you go. Raleigh's done a great job of creating an atmosphere that encourages people to get outside and meet each other like they did in the old days. Now, on the negative side, number 11, Raleigh doesn't have as much of a nightlife as other cities do, and a lot of that is because our downtown isn't as built out, and it's just more of a family-friendly city. Now, Durham, on the other hand, is more described as a college town, so you might have more options there for late night bars and activities. But here in Raleigh, even though it exists, I do often get the complaint from young people that it just doesn't have as much of that city vibe and that nightlife vibe as they're looking for, and that's just maybe a con for some people with Raleigh that you need to be aware of. You'll also find that at night, it gets extremely dark here in Raleigh. I had no idea before moving here that because of the trees, and because honestly Raleigh is not good about putting up lights for some reason, it gets extremely dark whether you're driving on the interstate, surrounded by 60-foot tall trees lining the road. So it makes it really hard if you want to go for an evening walk. It makes it really hard if you want to drive somewhere. I felt extremely lost, and honestly I still do when driving at night. You're definitely going to want to pull out Google Maps or Apple Maps, because honestly it's just hard to tell where you are. Sometimes I'm used to Texas, where everywhere you look you're going to see businesses and lights. It's kind of like you're living in a casino. Very different here. Now, during the day, you'll find that traffic is not that bad here. The truth is, you can get almost anywhere in about 15, 30 minutes max. It's honestly super, super nice. Now, on 440, our inner belt, that one does get a little bit congested during rush hour. Now, locals, they will have you believing that this is the worst place in the world for traffic, and it's because of how many people are moving into the area. And that leads me into the next point, which is locals are not always a big fan of how much we're growing. Now, it creates a lot of equity in their homes, and they can sell their home for a few $100,000 more because people like me and you are moving into the area. We're also creating jobs and opportunities. But Raleigh is changing, the culture is changing, the roads and the infrastructure can't quite keep up, and if we continue at this pace, which I think we will, that will continue to become an increasingly larger issue in the years to come. I just hope that as we grow, not only do we get a little bit more of that nightlife, but I really hope that we get a better airport. So it used to be a hub way back in the day, but now that there's places like Atlanta that are kind of hubs for the East Coast, we don't have very many flight options. We don't have many food options that even stay open past like 8 or 9 o'clock. On the bright side, there's basically no line whenever I go to the airport, but it's kind of like a wasteland when you're there, and if there's any delays due to weather or anything, honestly, you might not have any other flight options to get you to your destination on time. And that just makes me thankful that I don't fly a lot. But if you fly a lot for work, for example, then that might be a big con for you that you might not realize going into this. Now look, there was a lot of negatives in this video, but I have loved living in Raleigh, North Carolina. I do not regret moving here. I think this place is great. I'm here to stay. I want to help you navigate the area. If you're still in the learning, researching phase, hope this was helpful. Keep watching videos on the channel. But if you're ready to make a move, or you just want to have some very specific questions answered, then call the number below, or you can click that link in the description, set up a time to chat with me and my team. In the meantime, my name is Benjamin Carver. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.